Alright, so let's go ahead and open up the PowerShell ISE. ISE standing for Integrated Scripting Environment. And I'm just going to go to the Start menu, type in PowerShell. So you can see that there's, of course, your typical PowerShell prompt, but there's also PowerShell ISE. So that's the one you want to open up. Now, I think by default, if it's the first time you're starting up PowerShell ISE, the PowerShell prompt will have 100% of the screen. For some of you, it might be different, but if it is like this, you can go ahead and open up the script pane by going to this little arrow pointing down where it says script. And this is, if you hover over it, it says show script pane. So click on that. And obviously I've resized my font to make it easier for you guys to see this. But unfortunately for the window itself, I really haven't been able to figure out how to change the font size, so I apologize for that. So in this area, this is where you actually would type in your script. And the bottom here will be the area where you can run your PowerShell commands, and also it shows the output of the script you're running. If I go to View and click on Show Command Add-on, I think you guys can better see this now. But on the right hand side, this commands pane gives you a list of all the modules that you currently have installed. This might look different for you, of course. But if you click on the drop down menu where it says all, it shows you all the PowerShell modules that are available for you to use. In this VM, the only thing I've installed is OhmyPosh and PoshKit modules, but otherwise this is a default VM with all the default modules that come with Windows 10. So below the modules, if it shows you all the commandlets that are available to you. Okay, there's a lot of them. So you're also provided with this field here where you can partially type in the command name, and then it searches for you as you're typing. So for example, get dash will list all the commandlets that start with get dash. But let's start typing more. So as you start typing more, it reduces the search results. So here we have get child item. Now you notice that when I click on it, on the bottom down here says to import the Microsoft PowerShell management module and its commandlets, including get child item, click show details. So what this means is in this session right now that I have for PowerShell ISE, it's currently not importing any of the modules. So I have to click on, if I want to be able to see how to use this commandlet, I need to click on show details. So now once I click on that, then it gives me all the details for this commandlet. And what I mean by details, I mean parameters. So if I were to use the get child item commandlet, there are all these parameters that I can use when I run it. The ones that are denoted with an asterisk are the ones that are required. Get child item doesn't have any required parameters, so none of these have an asterisk next to them. So going back over here to the script pane, you'll see there's a number 1 here. There's that means that these are line items. So as you're typing your script out and you're going to the next line, the numbers will keep on incrementing based on the number of lines that you've typed in. And if you notice down here at the bottom right, you're also told what line number your cursor is on right now. So I'm on line 1, column 1. That's because I haven't typed anything in. So let's go ahead and try something simple right now, just so that we can enable more buttons from the toolbar, and I can show you some of the stuff from the toolbar. So I'm going to click on get child item, and down here at the bottom right, I'm going to click on copy. And what that does is it's going to copy the commandlet and any parameters. I've chosen none, so it's just going to be get child item, and then I can paste it in here. And you can see that now I have the beginnings of a script. I have a single command, but it's the beginnings of a script. And when I did that, if you paid attention, now the run script button on the toolbar has become enabled, and so has the run selection. We'll get into the difference between these two in a bit, but let's go ahead and run our script. We essentially have a script. Now, how do we know that? Well, if you look at the tab name, it automatically gives it the name untitled1.ps1, ps1 denoting that this is a PowerShell script, and untitled because I haven't saved this. So let's go ahead and run it. And you'll notice down here, there's some output, right? So what does getChildItem do? If you run it in a directory, it gets all the contents of a directory. It's not the only thing it does. In the future, we'll go over other uses for it, but for this video, just know that that's what it does. So we can see here that we went over here to the commands pane, picked out a commandlet, look at the different parameters. We copied it, pasted into the script pane, and then we ran our script without saving it. We ran our script without saving it, and it ran it, and it showed output in the PowerShell command prompt below it. Okay, so let's go ahead and do something else. Let's add on to this script. Let's say I wanted to get all the directory listings for a particular directory. Right now, I'm not specifying a directory. So when I run it, it's running against the directory that I'm currently in the PowerShell prompt. But let's go ahead and specify a directory. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a tilde. The tilde just denotes that it's my home directory. That way I don't have to provide the whole path. And then I'm going to do a backslash. And you notice that when I do a backslash, this menu pops up. This is IntelliSense. And what IntelliSense does is it, as you're typing things in, like especially with commandlets, for example, a parameter, it starts giving you options that are available for that commandlet. Or in this case, it also allows you to navigate to different directories. So I'm going to scroll down here. I'm going to click on Documents. And you notice that it automatically gave me the full path. So let's go ahead and run this. I'm not saving it. I'm just running it. And now when I run it, it says getChildItem. And then down here, it tells you the directory that I'm running it against because it's now specified. Gives you the contents. And the only thing in that directory is my Windows PowerShell subdirectory. Okay. Well, what else can we do with this? Well, let's actually go back over here and then say C:\\. That should give us the root directory of the C drive. So let's go ahead and run that. And we see that now the output has changed down here. Let's go ahead and now start typing Windows because I want to see the contents of the Windows directory. And you'll see that now it gives us again more output, but it not only gives us directories, but also files and their file sizes, as well as file attributes on the left hand side. So we look at the right hand side over here and we can tell it whether or not we want only to list directories or whether we want to list files. We're given options to list files with specific attributes, and so on and so forth. We can list things recursively. So we're given all kinds of options, right? Well, for this, I just want to go ahead and just put a dash. And you notice that when I do a dash, that tells PowerShell that I'm about to use a parameter. It gives me a list of the different parameters that are available for this commandlet. So I'm going to say, let's scroll down here. There are different things, recurse, file. Let's say I only want to list files. I don't want directories. So let's click on that. And now it says dash file. Let's run our script. And if we scroll back up over here, we see that the only thing listed are the files, not the directories in this subdirectory, right? Okay, let's do something else with this. Let's expand on this script. So let's go ahead and assign this to a variable. And so whatever the output of this is, it will assign it to this files variable. So let's go ahead and run it. We see no output because it's assigned it to files. But if we go down here to the PowerShell prompt and we type in $files, you'll notice something else going on. Again, IntelliSense will pop up even in the PowerShell prompt. As soon as I typed in the $, you notice that it listed all the variables that are available for me. But as I'm typing, it's trying to show me what is the variable that it matches the most with. In this case, it's files. So if I hit enter, we see that there's the output, which is what we were expecting. So if I do this, if I hit enter and I create a new line, we'll see that if we run the script, now it shows us the output. Another thing to note is that now that we're in a second line, you'll see that the line number is now at 2. And how do we else know that? Down here at the bottom right, it shows us that we're on line 2, column 7. And that's where our cursor currently is, column 7. So now, if I type in a dot, again, IntelliSense comes up, and it gives me the different members of this object, because this file's variable is more than just a variable. Now it has converted into a object. So now if we wanted to do something else with this, we could just click on any of these. So for example, let's say if we do for each, you notice that it tells you expression, arguments, etc. So it starts giving you the different options for this. Or you can go down here, type in $files, and then a pipe, and then type in get member, and you can see what else is available. Files has a property called full name, and let's say I wanted to know the full path for each of the files in that Windows directory. Then I can just type in dot full name. And let's say I didn't want to run the full script, I just want to run this line. That's where this other toolbar button is good for. And that's one called run selection. If I don't select actual text, it'll only run that particular line. So if I click on run, you'll see that now it's listed all the files in that directory. Only the files, but the full path, because I told it right now that I wanted the full name. But you can also select particular parts of a script and then click on that run selection button. Of course, we're going to get the same output. But there's two different ways again. If you just click on a particular line, it'll run the entire line, or you can select a particular snippet of a script and run it. So what are the different options that we see? Of course, you're going to have the new file, open file, save file, and all that. There's the copy and paste. I already showed you how to run the script, how to run from selection. Also, if you want to connect remotely to a Windows machine that's on your network, you can also connect remotely to it by clicking on here, on the new remote PowerShell button. And then you would type in the host name of the machine, and then of course your credentials. And of course there's the different views. So you can click on this view, which I don't like, but I guess some of you might like having the PowerShell prompt on the left hand side, or you can do a complete script pane if you have a lot of stuff you want to work on first before you view the PowerShell prompt. I usually just have the PowerShell prompt all small over here just so that I can continue working with it. Let's explore the commands pane a little further down here. So earlier you saw me selecting the get child commandlet, not picking anything out from here and just saying copy. But there's two other buttons. There's one called run and one called insert. If you were to just click on run, it's only going to run the commandlet, right? And it's running it against this directory user, my home directory actually, because I didn't specify anything, right? It's just saying get child item, and whatever current directory I'm in, that's what it's going to run in. But there's other options as well. Let's say I wanted to say give me only the directories. I can check that off and hit run, and it's going to go ahead and only give me the directories. Let's say I wanted a depth of 2 directories, so that it will include not just the top level directory but the subdirectory. Let's click on that, and you'll notice that now it gave me that. So under my home directory I have a pictures folder, and under that pictures folder is a camera roll, save pictures and all that. Okay, so you can do that as well. And then down here there's another button called insert. If you click on that, you'll notice that in the PowerShell prompt it inserted the full command here. So you can see that here's the depth, and then the directory parameters that I selected over here on the right hand side. But let's say I wanted to add this to my script. I could go in here, erase this here, and then I'm going to click on copy, and then I'm going to paste it in here. And there you go. Get child item, depth of 2, directory, and then it's going to assign it to files. So let's go ahead and run this script. And now it's running it. And here's the output. Okay, so you can use this commands pane to build commands and their parameters, and then you can copy them over, or you can test them out before you copy them over in the PowerShell prompt. There's going to be all kinds of different options for parameters depending on what the commandlet is that you've selected. Let's click on add-ons, because you're quickly going to realize that there's not a whole lot of stuff you can do aside from what I've already shown, unless you add some more add-ons to this. So if you go to add-ons, open Addons website, you can see that in this website you can install all kinds of add-ons to PowerShell ISE. A menu generator, spell checker, a regex tool, but I wouldn't say there's a whole lot of them. I'm not sure if there are other places. I have never really, to be honest with you, explored adding on a whole lot of add-ons to my PowerShell ISE, simply because I like the way it works just as is. And like I said, whenever I'm already done with my initial scripts and I check them into versioning, I switch over to Visual Studio Code, which I believe eventually will replace this, but for now it's still my go-to place. So I don't really mess around with it too much, but just know that that's something that you could do, is you can go to the add-ons if you want. So what other tools do we have? If you go to tools options, you could change the font. You can customize the look and feel of this. There's themes you can choose to change the look and feel of the ISE. So let's say we do that one. The dark console, dark editor, monochrome green. You want to really go old school. I tend to leave mine in the default just because. So another thing to note is that in PowerShell ISE, the PowerShell prompt that you're given below, it's going to have a different profile than the standard one that you have in your PowerShell command prompt. And if we just type in $profile, you'll notice that it has a different path, PowerShell ISE profile.ps1, and that's so that you can customize the profile separate from your typical PowerShell prompt. Personally, I like to have it be the same as my standard one, so usually I'll create a symlink to it, so that way they look the same, because I like consistency across my PowerShell prompts. But just know that, take note that you would, if you, for example, customize your standard PowerShell prompt profile, and then you open up PowerShell ISE, you might notice that it doesn't look the same, and that's because it's using its own profile. So another thing that I wanted to show you was, of course, how to debug a script, and it's also a common feature with other integrated development environments, so it's not that much different here, which is to be able to use this debug here. So for example, let's say I wanted to test my script up to this point here, to line 8. Then I can just right click in here, click on toggle breakpoint. Okay, now what this is going to tell PowerShell ISE is, go ahead and run this script up to this point and stop here. Okay, so let's go ahead and run it, and you'll see that when I run it, it says hit line breakpoint line 8, and it gives you the output here. And now you can go ahead and debug the script from there on. So it basically just stopped at this point here. But let's say you wanted to continue, you go back to debug, and you can say, you can either skip that line by doing a step over, or you can step into it. So let's go ahead and step into it. And you can see that now it's running this line. How do we know? It's saying it's downloading, which is this invoke web request download path, file path. And it's run it. And now it's waiting for me at line 9. So that's pretty helpful if you're trying to debug a script. And you can also note down here that it says DBG in this brackets here. Of course, that's letting you know that you're currently in debug mode. Let's go ahead and continue here. Toggle the breakpoint, and that's how you remove the breakpoint. And I'm gonna go ahead and stop the debugger. Okay, because otherwise, if you're trying to test the script, you'd have to run the whole thing, right? So this basically just allows you to stop at a certain point, and then you can either run that step as well, and then step over it. So yeah, so that's among one of the main features of PowerShell ISE that you should be aware of. I think the intention is Visual Studio Code is supposed to replace PowerShell ISE, and in many aspects it does, but I still find myself using PowerShell ISE quite a bit, especially when learning new commandlets and just trying things out. It's like my scratch pad. And then once I have something that I'm ready to save to versioning, then usually I'll switch over to Visual Studio Code. It's just a habit of mine. I know other people probably just jump in directly to Visual Studio Code. I still see the benefits of using PowerShell ISE, and I'll continue to use it until it's no longer available. But until then, I still recommend people learn it, since it comes built into your Windows machine. Why not, right? Well, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Thank you for watching. Bye.